You're listening to the Black Eagles podcast.
Ahmet Dursun Sergen aldı. Sergen Bülent yan yana. Sergen Bülent. Sergen. Yanında Tümer var. Tümer'e doğru attı. Kaybetti. Tümer topu aldı. Sergen aldı. Gol! Gol! Sergen attı. Sergen attı. Şampiyonluk geldi. Sergen attı. Şampiyonluk geldi.
İbrahim'in pası. Zuma. Şimdi Ahmet. İkinci gole gidiyor Beşiktaş. Ahmet. Ve gol!
And welcome back, everybody. This is episode 240 of the Black Eagles podcast. And I'm your host, Sinan Kaan, live from New York City. As per usual, where the summer suddenly, like the bottom dropped out over here, and we just, like, one day I went out in shorts and a t-shirt and I was cold. It was crazy. And you could say that such wild phenomenon, unexpected, shocking stuff, is also fairly descriptive of whatever the heck is going on with Beşiktaş at the moment. And so, yeah, let's dig in, right? I think most folks are aware of what I'm talking about. I will still try to do the whole, no spoiler thing for anyone who's coming into this match review blind. I doubt there are many, honestly. I feel like if you're listening to a Beşiktaş podcast, you know about our results, But, we'll play this game. We'll pretend like there's someone out there, just for the sake of continuity. But so, yeah, of course, as everyone will be aware, Beşiktaş played on the road against Alanyaspor, which it's always going to be a difficult match. But so, yeah, let's dig in and talk about it, shall we?
Operation is in effect as of right now.
That's right. So, let's, first of all, talk about what happened last year. Last season, in November of 2021, our first match against them, again, on the road, they defeated us. 2-0. Kuma Babakar and Diadou, extra time, icing it. But then, in the second half of the season, we would turn things around. April 9th, Beşiktaş, I believe by April 9th, Alanyaspor is in charge against Farioli, and bam, a big 4-1 victory with Batshuayi bagging a brace, Joseph de Souza and Güven Yalçın contributing goals as well. For them, it was Efecan Karaca who scored their only sort of consolation goal, if you will, the equalizer, to make it 1-1, and then we would, like I said, just run riot, 4-1, crushing them. In our 12 previous matches, Beşiktaş had won 9, drawn once, and lost twice. So, of course, like we say every week, Beşiktaş is has a good track record against just about everyone. The very vast majority of Turkish clubs, Beşiktaş has a winning record against. But that's a very formidable one, worth noting. Only 2 losses to them ever, and only 1 draw. So, a draw is an unlikely event, perhaps, against Alanya. Foreboding information, that may be. So, let's talk about the lineup itself. Let's talk about this match. Let's dig in. Our keeper, let's start with us, why not, right? Our keeper is Ersin Destanoğlu, naturally, on the back line. Just a 4-man back line, for anyone wondering. Roman Saiz next to Emrecan Uzunhan. The exciting debut of the young central defender. Left-footed, but playing on the right side. So some folks say, oh, that's a big sort of factor. I don't know. We played with Vida on the left side a lot as a right-footed guy. I don't think that on two-man back line one needs to be so picky-choosy. That said, someone might try to defend him by saying he was out of position. Valentin Rosier played opposite Arthur Masuaku, again in. Of course, why not, right? Up ahead of him, Berkay Vardar, which is an interesting start in sort of defensive midfielder, number 6 role. Up ahead of him, Jedson Fernandes and Salih Uchan, still getting that look. In this case, over Kartal Kayra Yilmaz, which you understand. Alanya on the road, it's a formidable opponent, quite frankly. Like I said, we lost last season there, right? Rashid Ghazal opposite Georges Cavin Nkudu on the wings, and Wout Weghorst up top. That would be who Beşiktaş would put out. In the case of Alanyaspor, a 3-man back line, so they're playing some modern football under the Italian Farioli. Their keeper, young Turk, Yusuf Karagöz, 22-year-old. On their back line, Fatih Aksoy, 24-year-old former Beşiktaş player, who many will remember, quite unpopular for many Beşiktaş fans, given how he played against us previously for Alanya. Sort of classless, trying to get whistles and flap around, and very, unfavorable to Beşiktaş, no doubt. Alongside him on that back line, 22-year-old Furkan Bayır and 27-year-old Slovenian Jure Balkovic. In the midfield, 32-year-old Dutchman Leroy Fer, next to Usama Targalin, the 20-year-old Frenchman. Tayfur Bingo on the left side. Opposite, Daniel Candeias, 34-year-old Portuguese right winger. In front of them, Zinedine Ferhat and Efkan Bekiroglu, 26-year-old German Turk. Zinedine Ferhat is a 29-year-old Algerian midfielder. And up top would be Wilson Eduardo, 32-year-old Angolan striker. So an interesting lineup, no doubt. Kind of a 3-4-3 on paper. Although it's not entirely clear to me how it was laid out, to be 100% honest, because like Ferhat, the Algerian, and Efkan Bekiroglu are both listed as attacking midfielders, as 10s, with Fer and Targalin listed as central midfielders. So, Candeias and Bingo are clearly the wingers in the top 3 with Eduardo in the middle. But I'm not sure how their 4 midfielders line up and who their wing backs are definitionally. It's an interesting formation, no doubt. And on paper, with their 11 against our 11, as it was, scripted tactically, as much as they could prepare for it. Early on, it would not look good for Alanya. Let's just be clear about it. And I'm just going to quickly go over what happens in the match and then hand it over to Kaan Bayazit for the analysis. He goes in depth on it. And he'll talk a lot about some of the issues that sprang out of this one. But so first of all, in the 13th second, a yellow card for Georges Cavin Nkudu. He comes diving in on a pretty harsh tackle. Some folks are like, oh, was that a red card? No, I don't even think it's debatable. Whatever, though. He gets himself carded quite early, but just a minute later. On a corner kick by Rashid Ghazal, it drops to the head of Wout Weghorst, who heads it right down into the path of none other than Georges Cavin Nkudu, who slams it home into the back of the net with force. And Beşiktaş is up 0-1 right out of the gates. You love to see it. 15th minute, Emrecan Uzunhan gets a yellow card. Very questionable. Very, very, very, very, very soft. I was like, what? For what? It didn't make any sense. But we roll with it, I suppose. 19th minute, Wout Weghorst gets a yellow card for what? Not very clear. He was fouled pretty clearly and definitively in a way that cuts out our attack. So I'm not sure how we even get called a foul, and then because he's complaining about it, he gets carded when, I don't know. I feel like someone has to step in, VAR especially, and get into his ear and be like, whoa, chill out. We've made a mistake. Let's look at this again. And instead, he hands out a yellow card to Weghorst. Fatih Aksoy should have been carded there. But whatever, okay. A minute later, Salih Uçan scores an assist, sort of a passive assist from Rachid Ghezal. Salih does most of the work, dribbling into the box and slotting it home beautifully. A very respectful celebration, right? He's been with Alanya in the past, so credit to him for that, just as you'd hope folks would do for us, who played for us in the past. Fatih Aksoy being a classless jerk. When Nkudu or tackles him and gets that yellow card in the minute, there's a part of me that's wondering if this is like the North remembers moment, where he remembers the classless behavior of Fatih Aksoy previously, having just left us, still with us on loan, because Nkudu was on the club back then. So maybe the North remembered by cutting him out like that. By the way, on the first goal, another Nkudu Rosier Super Saiyan, I think, celebration. But so yeah, sure enough, 20th minute, Beşiktaş is up 2-0 or 0-2. We're loving life over here, right? And not much longer, 11 minutes later, Georges-Kevin Nkudu in the 29th minute finds Rachid Ghezal in the box. Nice ball to him, low on the ground, right into his path. Ghezal is brought down quite poorly, and yet nothing is given out card-wise. Very questionably. Whatever, Rachid Ghezal steps up, takes the penalty, slots it past the keeper. We are winning 0-3 and overlooking the fact that they should be a man or two down by now. 36th minute, Leroy Fer gets a yellow card, and so does Emrecan Üzünhan he's in a running motion, and his hand goes back, and he's sort of first of all, without any malintent, but second of all, maybe grazes his neck. But yeah, he's given a second yellow card and sent off. And so instead of them being a man or two down, we are. Which is crazy. The reason I say a man or two is because Fatih Aksoy gets a yellow card in the 41st minute, which at the very least should have been a second, maybe even third or fourth. There was a lot of tough tackles on his part that were not called. But so you got a bad feeling. There's like a lot of dirt being done behind the scenes, and so while we're celebrating and thinking, this is the time of our lives, something's cooking. 44th minute, Typhoon Bingo ahead off of a neat little chip. He sends just wide. Signaling intent, right? And in the 48th minute, on a free kick, which is questionable. I think Jedson actually gets ball on the tackle, but free kick, Efkan Bekirioğlu steps up, sends it in. Ersin doesn't even move for it. He seems sort of shook by it. I don't know how, if he doesn't get a good look on the ball or whatever it is, if it's a knuckler maybe. Whatever it is, it's a goal. It's not pretty. And suddenly, at 1-3 going into the half, it's a very different ball game because Beşiktaş is down a man, and even though they have 2 yellow cards, we have 3, and now everyone has the opportunity to make some subs and sort of shift the focus of the match and avoid trouble. And it's Beşiktaş who has to do so the most. Nkudu comes off with his yellow card. Understandable. Rachid Ghezal comes off because of his injury. They're hopefully just monitoring his minutes and making sure he doesn't re-aggravate the injury. Worst case, obviously, is he actually re-aggravates the injury. But so, yeah, the one questionable decision, of course, is Salih Uçan coming up. On come Montero, which is, obvious. I think the one move that we know needs to be made is probably someone up top, someone up front coming out for Montero so we can focus on defending to some extent. Ideally, you might keep Weghorst and take out maybe a winger and have two guys shifting or something like that. So since we have to take both wingers out anyway, okay, so you bring on Tyler Boyd maybe and Montero, right? I mean, ideally, you might be putting out Muleka, I think, but if you're really hoping to catch him on the counter. But on the other hand, Tyler Boyd has some success as a wingback in the preseason now, so maybe the thinking is he has that versatility to come back and help out to just dead the game. And by putting on Necip instead of Salih Uçan, that's clearly what he's doing. He's deading the game at the 45-minute mark. Very, very questionable. This is a tactic you employ late in the match, right? 70th minute, maybe. More likely the 80th minute or so. But the 45th minute, I don't know about that. But still, it's actually mission accomplished. He does, in fact, dead the game. They're clearing the ball. There's very little good passing being done, but there's a lot of clearing and solid defending. And they don't have any highlights to speak of until the 79th minute. A few half chances. One sort of free cross off the post, but really nothing to speak of. 60th minute, they bring on Arnaud Lusamba for Oussama Targalin. They bring on Idrissa Doumbia for Leroy Fer, so there's a yellow card coming out. They bring on Oz Aydin for Tayfur Bingöl and Yusuf Özdemir for Fatih Aksoy. So again, now there's both of their guys with a yellow card who are off. Fatih Aksoy being given that opportunity to come off that's dirty. Kandeas being in this game, kind of dirty because he makes that tackle on the penalty that should get him perhaps a red card for the nature of the tackle, at least a yellow. He gets nothing. 64th minute, he gets a yellow card. Whoops, he should be out now. 78th minute, Erencan Yardımcı comes on for Wilson Eduardo. And in the 79th minute, Romain Saiz makes a heroic save off the line. He saves a header off the line. And so there it is. They've finally created one chance. It's almost the 80th minute, and we've saved it off the line. And I think we're all maybe at this point thinking, okay, all right. I mean, this is not how I would have scripted things. This is not the tactic I would have employed if I were Valérien Ismaël. I would have not tucked my tail between my legs for that long, but here we are, It's 1-3, nearly the 80th minute, and we've just pretty much saved the one chance they could kind of scrap together, even though we're really back in numbers. But sure enough, in the 80th minute, completely out of nowhere, a cross is pinged by Romain Saiz. Not entirely sure what he's thinking. He might want to head it the other way if he can, or just, I don't know. I mean, I guess he's thinking to clear it out for a corner. I don't know if it's the best decision, frankly, but because it's like a kind of poor cross coming out towards somewhere in the middle of the pitch beyond the penalty box, and I don't think anyone's really there to get it. I mean, it's easy to say this after the fact, and you're looking at a highlight, right? Perhaps the best instinct a defender can have is just get in there and do something about it whenever they have the chance, And so that's what he thinks. He gets his head on it, and it just somehow goes. It's like the perfect strike for the opposition. 2-3, own goal. And now things are looking a little bad. It's the 81st minute, so there's only, 9 minutes and some extra time to see this thing out. But we all know how this thing can go now. There's no mystery about it. Right after that, Kenan Karaman comes on for Berkay Vardar. Again, because of injury, so, not much say about the substitution from Alanyaspor's part. And to his credit, you know, the subs, as weird as they all look, when you look at the actual roster and the folks he had to choose from, it's not a great bunch. For all the work we were supposed to have done before training camp, we suddenly look a lot less deep. We've replaced Ridvan, so there's not really an excuse on that front. Of course, Emirhan leaving is a huge one when you count that Atiba and Joseph are both out injured. So that's a huge hole, no doubt. There's like really no one for to bring on in that regard to hold things down in the midfield. Except for Kartal Kaida Yilmaz, who's coming off a, you know, kind of, I don't know. People were very critical of his performance. As I said in the last episode, he was okay to me, you know. It was a big moment playing back with Beşiktaş after all those years away on loan in front of a very loud, great crowd, you know, at the Vodafone Park. It's a big moment for him, and I think it's natural for the kid not to necessarily always be able to step up to those kinds of moments. So fine, whatever. He didn't want to trust in Kartal Yilmaz, especially in this high pressure situation with a very qualified Alanyaspor, right? We spoke about previously about how they won against Fatih Karagümrük, scored 4 goals. So they're very capable of scoring in numbers. So, okay. Not many options to choose from that Alanyaspor, representing a bit of a failure on the front office's part at this point. We'll get into that later. But anyway, sure enough, 92nd minute. So once again, you know, our nerves are rattled after the second goal of theirs, but we make it past the 90-minute mark and we're thinking, oh, okay. Still managed to do it, I guess. You know, I think we start resting on our laurels, and then bam, a penalty, a clumsy tackle from Jedson Fernandes, who, if you recall, gave away the free kick at the end of the first half that got them back into this thing. Kandaya steps up. The Ferhat is the fella who gets the penalty, who draws it. Kandaya steps up. Shouldn't be in the match anymore because he should be out with cards or whatever. Sends Ersin not the wrong way. Ersin actually gets that right, but just can't get enough on it because it's a very well placed shot, and it's 3-3, tied up. And that would be the final score. Did Ismail play defensively? Too defensively? Yes. Is that why we lost the game? In part, right? But the referee mistakes were certainly more impactful. The lack of depth on the bench, also quite impactful. And quite a bit of bad luck. 2 set pieces and an own goal. And that's it. 3-3. A very disheartening draw. Very similar to the Adana Demirspor draw last season that sent things spiraling. Hopefully this won't be the case here. But let me hand the mic over to Kaan for hashtag Kaan's Corner. Let's hear his take on the match. He will do the analysis. So, ladies and gentlemen, and folks of all stripes, Mr. Bayazit is here for Kaan's Corner.
Boy, that's the third time I think in the last 4 seasons or so that we've given away a 3-0 lead, which is one of the most painful things in football. You'll all remember the 3-0 at halftime against Fenerbahce, and then the 3-0 we got against Adana Demirspor last season. But there's a big difference, I think. Last season, the Adana Demirspor draw, ultimately, that was very, from minute 1 to minute 90, an extremely poor showing by the referee, especially if you see the ultimate equalizer, which was, should have been disallowed 3 times. You know, I'm not going to go into it too much, but you know, there's a push fall on Najib, there's a pull fall on Rosier, and then there's a handball goal. So that's like literally 3 situations where you could have disallowed, where you should have disallowed it. Yesterday's game, it's a bit of a tale of two halves. In the first half, I think we start the game really well. We go 3-0 up, deservedly so. We played well. We outplayed Alanyaspor. We didn't give them any chances on the counter or anything like that. We didn't allow them to get into the game really from minute 1. Scored after just 3 minutes, doubled our lead and then tripled it with a penalty. But throughout the match, you know, after just 10 seconds, we already get a first yellow card for Nkudu. I think ultimately a right decision, but how often do you see a yellow card being pulled within the first seconds of a match? For that, I mean, that's a yellow card. That is justifiably a yellow card, but like, let's be honest, like in a game, if a referee pulls a yellow card in the first minutes, it needs to be a very serious thing, and that was not. Like, Nkudu went for the ball. It wasn't like he didn't, like, yeah, I don't know, whatever. But that instantly, I think, kind of showed this referee, Yasin Kol, new referee, one of the new generation, trying to establish his authority, I guess. In the BN Sports post-match, they obviously discussed all of the positions, and it was quite telling that almost all the questionable referee decisions happened in the first half, and every single one of them. I don't think there was a single quote-unquote wrong decision that went in favor of Beşiktaş yesterday. According to the BN Sports pundits, this is not to me. I was watching this post-game analysis by the pundits and the former referees and the supposed experts, and like legitimately, unanimously, all agreeing that the wrong decisions were all against Beşiktaş. The first big one, I think this happens before the 3-0, but I'm not sure. But that was the first yellow card on Emre Can. They unanimously agreed not a yellow card. But I think the most impactful one, rather than Emre Can's second yellow, is actually our penalty. Because again, unanimous agreement, that should have been a penalty and a red card. And I've already tweeted this out, so maybe you've read this, but if you haven't, I'll do it again. But Kaan, there's no more double punishment in football. There's no more penalty and a red card, and that is not true. The rule that got changed is if a defender attempts to play the ball and is the last man or takes away a clear goal-scoring opportunity, but attempts to play the ball, then it's no longer a red card. Then it's a yellow card. But the situation here is different. When Nkudu cuts back and passes it into the area into the space where Ghezzal is running into, Ghezzal has a clear-cut goal-scoring opportunity. The defender challenges him from behind. The defender isn't playing the ball, isn't attempting to play the ball, only has the intention to force to take down Ghezzal, to prevent him from scoring. So this is a case of a defender not attempting to play the ball and only being interested in preventing a clear-cut goal-scoring opportunity. This is textbook, per definition, a red card and a penalty. This is something that will be shown in the referee seminars in the coming weeks by the MHK. They will be showing this exact position to the referees in the coming weeks, and they will be telling them, if this happens, you need to give a red card. They will be telling the VAR refs, this is a clear error. if this happens, you need to interject and you need to tell the referee to pull a red card or to come and look so he can change his yellow into a red card. This is a textbook example of when a penalty and a red card should be awarded. To me, this is the single biggest error in this game. Yasin Kol had a lot of bad calls. There was the potential last man with Fatih Aksoy on Weghorst, where he gives Weghorst the yellow card. What the pundit said there is this is a yellow card for Fatih Aksoy, whereas many of you will be thinking, but this is a clear-cut goal-scoring opportunity. But the pundits are actually right, because the rule is that the ball needs to be under control. And this was a high ball. It was still in the air at the moment of the fall. That Fatih Aksoy makes the fall. Weghorst does not control the ball, so you cannot say that this is a clear-cut goal-scoring opportunity because he hasn't controlled the ball. So therefore, yellow for Fatih Aksoy. Of course, he gives yellow to Weghorst, and he gives yellow because of the protest, not because Weghorst makes a foul or anything. He does call foul on Weghorst, which is absolutely preposterous. And then, of course, rightfully so, Weghorst is upset. Protests, gets yellow for protest. This is a wrong decision. This should have been yellow for Fatih Aksoy and a free kick for Beşiktaş. But that was a bad decision. But the worst one is the fact that I forget which one of Alanyaspor's player it is that brought down Gezal, but that is 100% without a shadow of a doubt red card. Then of course there's the second yellow for Emre Can. Look, I think this is a harsh second yellow. You can see in the replay that the player is, of course the Alanyaspor player is acting like he got hit in the face, which he didn't. But Valérien Ismaël has a point in his post-match that this is a lack of discipline. Emre Can is on a yellow. When you are a footballer and you're in a football game, and a referee literally in the first 30 seconds gives you a yellow card, makes it very clear that he is willing to pull cards without a second hesitation. You, as a professional footballer, need to have the discipline to not be waving your arms around like a dumbass. Emre Can, I mean, look, he shouldn't have been sent off, but he gives the referee an excuse, and he should not have given the referee an excuse. So this is on the referee, but also on Emre Can. Emre Can shares his part of the blame here. That was a rookie mistake. Free kick for Alanyaspor that leads to goal. That was a free kick. Nothing can be said about that. The penalty for Alanyaspor in added time, again, penalty. Nobody can say anything about that. The biggest thing is the first half was riddled with referee mistakes. Some big ones, the Weghorst position, Emre Can's 2 yellow cards that are both. The main issue was Emre Can got 2 very easy yellow cards, and then Alanyaspor's players, for example, there was one fall from Candeas on Getson, which was a professional fall, no attempt to play the ball whatsoever, and he didn't even get a yellow card throughout the game. Like, the thing is consistency, right? If you're going to give Emre Can really soft yellow cards, you can't do that and not do it on the other side either. Like, Yasin Kol was being very happy-go-lucky with his cards for Beşiktaş. And the same thing can be said last week. Last week, Cenk's 2 double yellow. Last week's Cenk's first yellow. Look, he is clearly trying to stop Mensah, but fails miserably. Can you really give a guy a yellow card for an attempted professional fall when you fail? I think that's harsh. And then, of course, his second yellow card was just the referee flexing his muscles. That is just something that referees need to stop doing. Referees need to stop trying to be alpha males and stop trying to be dicks. Because the problem is that this doesn't happen in every game. I was watching the Fenerbahce against Umraniye game, and Arao, who was already on a yellow card, made a very clear professional fall, should have been sent off. and didn't get a card, yeah, then you see our red cards, our double yellows. It becomes very painful to accept.
Second part of the recording will be in lesser quality because Kim just came home, so just recording this outside quick. So yeah, the first half that was impacted quite gravely by the ref. I mean, despite the fact that we go 3-0 up, look, our penalty is clear cut. He has to give that, but he doesn't give the red card that he has to give. VAR doesn't do their job. That's a massive failure that should be addressed. Like I said, this is going to be seminar material. This is going to be one of those textbook examples that they're going to point to that, look, if this happens, you have to give red and a penalty. So that's the first half, where it ends 1-3 because of a free kick on the edge of the area. Clear fall by Getson that he probably shouldn't have made. I think there were a lot of those situations, though, this game where I feel like we could have avoided a lot of the trouble we got into. The free kick, yeah, I've seen people say Ersan should save it, but I don't know. I find free kicks hard to judge. He seemingly didn't see or saw it too late. You can argue, okay, then maybe he didn't put his wall in the right position. Yeah, maybe he should save it. I don't know, but that can happen. It's kind of telling though that the same thing happened against Adana. Is we concede a free kick, and that starts the problem. But I think then the issue in the second half isn't the referee anymore, because also if you look at the BN Sports evaluation of the game from the referee, almost everything happened in the first half. Like, all his mistakes happened in the first half. He had a pretty anonymous second half, and that was largely down to the fact that Valérien Ismaël made a very clear decision in the second half, and that was defend the lead. And actually, if you look back at the game, and you look over the entire duration of the game, and you see the amount of chances Beşiktaş gave away, then there is some sound logic there, because if you look even at the end, with the 3-3, we gave away one opportunity. That was a ball that Saiz cleared off the line. That is the only chance Alanyaspor managed to create. If you go back and you watch the game again, you will see that despite the fact that Beşiktaş had almost less than 20% possession, and basically said to Alanya, here's the ball, we park our bus. Despite that, if you look at it, at no point, except for that one moment in like the 79th minute or something where Saiz clears the ball off the line, there isn't a single moment where you're like, Alanya are gonna score. The problem is that by taking the approach that Valérien Ismaël did at halftime, taking off, he took off Geza because of an injury. He later on took out Berkay because of an injury. So those were two forced substitutions. He took off Josh Kevin Nkudu because of him being on a yellow card. And I completely agree with that decision. In this game, with that referee, you have to be realistic. You can't leave Nkudu on with a yellow card. That's a sub you have to make. Then you have to look at what he has available on his bench. So he ended up putting Montero in. He ended up putting Necip in. Tyler Boyd and Kenan Karaman. And the alternatives he had were Kartal Kayra Yilmaz. He could have put Emirhan Delibaş on. He could have put Ozan Akgün on. He could have put Jackson Muleka on. And I think that's pretty much his options. So, is putting Montero on a wrong decision? No, I don't. I think you have to put on an extra defender. Emre Can is sent off. You lost one of your central defenders. You put on an extra defender. That's a no-brainer. Berkay is injured. There's the first question: are you going to put Necip on? Or are you going to put Kartal on? I think I understand the decision to go with Necip because of experience. And we saw last week that Kartal did kind of let the pressure get to him a little bit. He didn't. I don't think he played a bad game last week, but you could notice that it was a big moment for him. Not his debut, but still, after 2 seasons at Umranje, getting the chance, I think the moment was big, and I understand that Val is maybe thinking, okay, I'm not gonna put him in because the pressure might be too much for him. So he decides to put a very experienced Necip in. You all know what I think about Necip, but I understand this decision. Then he takes Salih off, Salih Uçan. That is something that I find puzzling. I understand Gezal being taken off because he already was a little injured pre-match. And then he takes Berkay off because, again, injury. But Salih was literally one of our best players. I think he should have stayed on. Nkudu, again, I think that's the right decision, but not putting Jackson Muleka on is a mistake. And I'll come back to that in a second. Then Tyler Boyd and Kenan. Again, I don't think those are wrong decisions per se, because again, you come back to the whole experience part, which is important to cope with pressure. And I think Oğuzhan and Emirhan, they don't have the experience, so it's understandable that you go with Tyler and with Kenan. I don't necessarily think the subs he made, apart from not putting Muleka on, are per definition wrong, except for taking Salih out. But I do think that the big issue, the biggest problem, wasn't necessarily the subs he made, but it was the intention with which he came out of the dressing room. Look, we've been watching Beşiktaş for a long time. We know we've seen these games before. We go down to 10-man, whether it's still a draw or we're in the lead. But Beşiktaş always, even when they're down to 10-man, will continue to try and attack to an extent. They will try to counter, we'll see if they get an opportunity, right? Like, that is normal. But in this game, we didn't. All we did was set up shop in front of our own goal and defend. And the problem was, instead of catching them in midfield, trying to keep them away from our goal, we parked the bus in front of our own 16, inviting the pressure, and after the game, Valerie Ismail talked about we wanted to stop them coming through the middle and then passing out wide and stop the crosses from coming in. I guess largely he succeeded in that, but the problem is when you defend this closely to your own goal is that they are going to be able to get crosses off. And as we see from the 2-3, which was an extremely unlucky goal from Sai's own goal, it only takes one cross that is not really going anywhere, but your defender gets a bad touch on it and suddenly it goes into your goal. And that's what happened there. Because again, like I said, in the second half we gave Win one opportunity that was right before the 2-3, and that's a ball that Sai's cleared off the line. That was the only chance they really created. But then, in a very unfortunate way, Sai's heads it beyond Ersin. And if you look at the position, if you go back and look at the summary of the game, it's an early cross, and Sai's tries to head it out into corner, and it's a mistake from Sai's. He probably should have headed it. I mean, look, he has two decisions, right? He tries to head it out for a corner, or he tries to head it out to the wide area, where then there's a chance for an Alanyaspor player to pick up the ball and cross it in again. So obviously he is opting for the corner, and he just hits it badly and it goes into his own goal. It is a very unfortunate own goal. He wasn't under any direct pressure. Apart from he did have to obviously clear the ball, but he didn't have like a man right directly in his neck or something. That it wasn't necessarily super dangerous, and it kind of came out of falling out of the air. But then of course 81st minute, and you're 2-3, and it's 2-3, and then nerves start setting in, and you give away a clumsy penalty in the end. I think if we play this game 10 times from halftime onwards, we win it 9 times. But the decisions made by Ismail, I think if you play like that for 15 to 20 minutes, that's normal. I think Sergen would do the same thing. Şenol Güneş would do the same thing. Any manager that has won a title with us over the last decade, which is only those two really, would do the same thing. Like in the last 10 to 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes of the game, you're leading 3-1, you're down to 10 man, they are going to defend the lead. But at the halfway mark of the game, they wouldn't do that, and I wouldn't do it either. I'm not saying don't defend. Obviously you're down to 10 men, and the other team are going to have the initiative. But if you have Muleka on the bench, who is a very good player on the counter, who can exploit the gaps that are undoubtedly going to come, then you need to put him on, unless he has an injury or something. But then you need to communicate that. We had some options that we didn't use, but the biggest issue was the mentality that we just park the bus and only defend. I don't think there was a single moment in the second half where we attempted to exploit them on the counter. And look, I understand, it's war, you're trying to conserve energy as much as possible. It's not a normal circumstance, you're playing in Alanya where it's even warmer. I understand all those things, but at the end of the day, I do believe that it's a bit of it is a tactical error, I think, to start with that mentality straight from kickoff in the second half. I think it's fine to double down on defending in the final minutes, but if you do that coming out of the gate in the second half, I just think you're making things worse. But then again, if you come out and if we concede in the first 10 minutes, then it's no better either. So it's a difficult thing. Look, if we win this game, I don't think anyone would be bitching about how defensive foul played in the second half if you win, because then it's like, oh, he did what he had to do. But now, because it went wrong, everyone is complaining about how we played in the second half, and is pointing to that as the reason. But in reality, the chance of us scoring 1-4 on the counter isn't massive. It's not because we would have put Muleka on that suddenly we would have definitely scored. We might have been able to keep them a little bit further away from our goal, but the truth is, if that one ball falls right, which it did for them with the size own goal, you're always going to have a tough time. And yeah, ultimately it's Getson who makes the mistake in the penalty area and gives away a penalty, and it's very unfortunate for Ersin because he got super close as well. He almost had it. And Candeas hit it right, but Candeas is one of those players that should have been booked, had multiple positions where he should have been booked. Obviously that's not how it works. He probably would have held back if he was on a yellow, but you never know. Like, he potentially could have been sent off. Fatih Aksoy potentially could have been sent off, and the guy that made the penalty fall on Gezal should have been sent off. So the second half, Val made mistakes for sure, but the big moment in this game still after the game, and the problem is that Val's decisions kind of overshadow the referee's pathetic performance in the first half. But the big decision really in this game was that non-red card on the penalty, and that is ultimately something that undoubtedly decided this game, because I don't remember exactly when it was. Was it like the 25th minute we got the penalty? Look, we played 70 minutes with 10. They could have played plus 7. They could have played 75 minutes with 10 people or something, and it would have been a completely different game. Of course, if the referee does what he's supposed to do, he didn't do his job. Ultimately, it's 70% on the ref and 30% on VAR, I would say. Or 70% on the ref, 20% on VAR, and 10% on dumb fucking luck. Because of that, I can't believe that own goal. It was very unfortunate. But the reaction from the players, Gezal was really pissed off after the game, as you can see on his Instagram post. I think we will see a positive reaction from the players in the next game. And it's no man overboard. Alanyaspor away is a very difficult game. It's unfortunate because we had 3 points in the bag and we gave them away. We dropped 2 points. But I think this could actually, I think it could improve the resolve of the team. I think players like Gezal, players like Weghorst are gonna be very, very motivated going forward. So I wouldn't say it's a man overboard. I do think it's concerning what we saw in the second half from Fowl's mentality to barricade himself. But the football we played in the first half, frankly, was good. Was really good. We were 3-0 up against one of the tougher teams in the league in an away match in very difficult circumstances given the heat. Of course, they didn't have Efecan, which is big for them. But I think our first half performance was good. I think there's a lot of positives to take away from the game, and it just gets overshadowed by the referee's performance and Val's decisions in the second half. And all we can hope is that that will improve. And now we just need to get the transfers we need. We need another midfielder. That was obvious again today. And hope for the best.
Yeah, very nice. Thank you, Kaan Bayazit at RAZZERIAN Razarian on Twitter and Instagram. But yeah, thank you once again for that great insight. And I pretty much agree on all fronts. One slight adjustment I might make. He says it's 70% on the ref, 20% Val, 10% on bad luck. I would say it's maybe 50% on the ref, 20% on Val, 20% on the board for not providing better depth off the bench, and then 10% bad luck. 50, 20, 20, 10, if I'm not mistaken. Gets me to where I need to be. But so, speaking of numbers and all that, let's do our stats. So everyone has focused on the negatives stats-wise. Alanya had 78% of the ball to our 22. They had 11 total shots to our 6, although we had 4 on target to their 3. They had 3 shots on target and 3 goals. A lot of people have spoken to how Alanya had 538 passes at a 90% clip, and we only had 121 passes at a 68% rate of success. Quite abysmal. But again, we were just killing the game. We were just dead in it. And quite effectively, except for really flukes. Really, if you think about it. The own goal especially. Like, without that, we probably would have won this, and people are thinking, well, it was too conservative, but it works. So what can you say? And now, of course, I think people are calling for his head. I think that's wrong. I think we can all agree that he plays a role in being responsible for this loss. But that doesn't mean we should pretty much scrap all the work we did in the off-season and the team we've built and everything that we've been working towards in 2 matches where we have 4 points. We'll talk about the standings in a moment, but again, a point, big picture without the sort of devastating way it happened. A point in Alanya is not bad. We didn't do it last year. XG, and here's something positive, I guess. 1.8 for Alanya and only 1.32 for us. Although they beat us, it wasn't like ridiculous. Neither of us had deserved that second goal, according to XG. They had 12 corners to our 1. They committed 22 fouls to our 16. Now, that's weird because we only got 3 cards, yellow cards each, and we got a red. They didn't, so we had 4 cards to their 3, even though they committed quite a few more fouls than we did, which speaks to the sort of unjust manner in which the guy was officiating. But so, there's some interesting stuff. XG is not that disproportionate, even though we're a man down for much of the game and really not even attempting a counter. And that, again, the one criticism I have is that he didn't play Muleka on the wing. I agree with Kaan on that. Instead of Tyler Boyd, I think he can kind of go for the goal on the counter. We had a couple of opportunities, and because Weghorst had no one to work with him, there was just nothing happening. Whatever. We're not going to dwell on it. At the end of the day, it's a draw. And it's a disappointing one. But I think people need to just relax as far as calling for people's heads to be chopped. We are 2 games into the season. And let's talk about the standings, right? Only 2 teams so far have actually managed to win both of their matches. And that's Adana Demirspor and Trabzon. Adana Demir just defeated Sivas 3-0 after beating Giresun 2-3 on the road. Their next match will be against Fener, on the other hand, so it'll get tougher for them from here on out. Trabzon has won twice, very unconvincingly. I'll be honest. Hatay 1-0, very, very, very barely eked it out. 0-2 against Istanbulspor, despite the fact that it was close running. Istanbulspor kind of gave it away late. Densville scored in the 86th minute just to ice it, but it was 0-1 and they were pressing for much of the game. Could have had it, no doubt. They're going to be in the Champions League this week as well. Today, in fact, by the time this is released. So, they're going to be going into the next match with some fatigue. The next match being Antalya on the road, which is never an easy task. So, with that said, we're right behind there with 4 points. Fener, Başakşehir, Alanya, Beşiktaş, and Gaziantep each have 4 points. So we're right back in that sort of second tier. Not bad after 2 weeks, right? To say we're still within reach of the top, that's sort of ridiculous to even be talking about after 2 weeks, but it's very much true. There's only 2 teams that have managed to win twice in Turkey. The parity in the Super League, the degree to which anything can happen between any 2 teams in Turkey has never been more true than now. It really does feel like you can't ever write off an opponent, no matter who that opponent is, right? And we've seen Umraniye surprise Fener. We've seen Giresun surprise Galatasaray. You just never know. So, Alanya, a fairly known quantity, especially at home, especially a side that can score a lot, that. A draw is not the end of the world. Let's just close the page on it and move on. I will be signing out. Thank you so much, Kaan, for coming on. Follow him again at Razzerian, Razzerian. Follow myself at Sir_Writes_a lot. Follow the podcast at Eagles_podcast or Black Eagles Podcast, one word, on Instagram. As always, let's go Beşiktaş! Woo! Of course, I would be remiss not to mention our next match is Sunday, August 21st. Again, that late 2:45 p.m. kickoff here, so I think that's 9:45 in Istanbul. We will be home against Fatih Karagümrük, an Istanbul derby, in serious quotation marks, because we all know Fatih Karagümrük is not a particularly serious club. It's one of those Istanbul teams that doesn't really need to whatever. We won't dwell on that either. The important thing is that we will be hosting Fatih Karagümrük on Sunday, August 21st. Check your local listing. We will be back next Monday, as usual, to talk about what occurs. Peace out, everybody.
Beşiktaş International hopes you enjoyed this program.